YouTube, and double check if it's on the Facebook.
I'm so glad these messages are silent. If they knew, if they only knew.
Great. We have a live stream going both on Facebook and YouTube, which means that Tamara, you can start with the words of welcome, and I will just be double checking all the panelists. In the meantime, I will spotlight Tamara for her words of welcome.
Good morning. Dobrý den. Welcome to Making Ukraine Whole Again, a commemoration of Crimean Tatar Flag Day. On behalf of our co-sponsoring organizations, the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America and the World Congress of Crimean Tatars, I'm honored to welcome everyone here today to our virtual forum. My name is Tamara Oleksy, and I am the former president and currently serve as the executive director of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, a not-for-profit representative organization of the nearly 2 million Americans of Ukrainian descent. Since our founding in 1940, over 80 years ago, UCCA has promoted U.S. national interests and democratic values, and always sought to advance the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, of which Crimea is an integral part. Flags are an important part of everyday life. They can be a symbol of self-identification, a symbol of allegiance, and on a national level, of patriotism. For more than 100 years now, the flag with the sky blue background and the golden tamha symbol has been a part of Crimean Tatar national identity, from representing their struggle against Soviet-era repression and their 1944 forced deportation or genocide, to their return to their indigenous homeland following Ukraine's renewed independence in 1991. Unfortunately, these last 7 years under Russia's illegal occupation, the Crimean flag is once again persecuted against. It's treated as an extremist symbol and imprisons those who freely fly its colors. But today, by together commemorating Crimean Tatar National Flag Day, we demonstrate how truly united Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians are. Jointly, I know we will do all that is in our power to liberate the peninsula from Russia's illegal occupation, and we will continue our struggle for the right of Crimean Tatars to live freely in their indigenous homeland. The Ukrainian Congress Committee of America does not, has not, nor will ever recognize the Russian Federation's March 2014 staged plebiscite in Crimea, and stands firm that Russia's continuing presence in Crimea can only be recognized as a blatant violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and Crimea's territorial and administrative integrity. We call upon the international community to strengthen its condemnation of Russia's illegal occupation of Ukraine and make every effort to restore Ukraine's territorial integrity and the rule of law in Crimea. The only hope for the return of basic human rights to Crimea is the end of Russia's military occupation. I'm looking forward to today's program and the remarks from all of our speakers and experts. I know they will shed light on the importance of unity and how our joint diaspora communities, including our youth, along with the diplomatic and the NGO community, can provide ideas, strategies, and initiatives to make Ukraine whole again. Let today serve as a reminder that together we are stronger. There may be two flags, but we have one nation, and Crimea is Ukraine. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing today's moderator of our program, the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America's Director of Communications and Media, and from everything that I can tell, an adoptive son of the Crimean Tatar community in the United States. So Andriy Dobryansky, the program is now in your capable hands.
Thank you very much. I'm also trying to handle all of the videos that people are seeing on their screen. So I'm going to switch it over to myself. Thank you very much, Tamaru. We do have a busy program. I've just sent to all the attendees and the panelists that we are live on YouTube. We are also live on Facebook. So if people want to share that link with your friends, with other people, you're welcome to take that link and share it around. And we will, after this program is concluded, the recording will then be uploaded, and you can share that recording as well. But let us not waste any more time because we have some very important speakers to get to. I will not take any more time before turning to our first speaker with their opening remarks. First, those of you who have been paying attention even marginally to what's happening in terms of the United States, Ukraine, and international relations, you will have seen our first speaker with their opening remarks on almost every outlet, every mention of Ukraine, because when she arrived in the United States, and even before she arrived in the United States, she was in communication with almost everyone there is to speak with. I speak of now the ambassador of Ukraine to the United States, Ms. Oksana Markarova. Ms. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen from Washington, D.C., and salam alaikum to everyone. It's just in 2 days, we together will be celebrating the Crimean Tatar Flag Day. And it will be a great honor for us to raise the flag here in Washington, D.C. above our embassy. Because as we all know, and it's something that is very deep in our heart, we are one nation, we are one country with two flags. And this flag today, more than any time in our recent history, also represents our fight for freedom, something that Ukraine is doing on a daily basis, starting from 2014. This civilizational choice that we Ukrainian Tatars made repeatedly in history to be democratic, to be free from Russian aggression, always led to the attacks. And for our sisters and brothers, Crimean Tatars, in 1944, and we just recently were talking about the tragic events which led to the deportation of the majority of the Crimean Tatar population from Crimea. Unfortunately, in 21st century, they have to relive these tragic events again, and we're doing it together. The Crimean Tatar flag, which was first adopted in 1917, so quite a long time ago, by Crimean Tatar Kurultai, was again reconfirmed in 1991. It has been with us through the whole recent Ukrainian independence, which we will be commemorating the 30th year this year. It's, again, unfortunately, that after all the atrocities of the Crimean Tatar deportation and everything the Crimean Tatars had to live through, in March 2014, the new tragic history has started, not only for Crimean Tatars, but for all of us Ukrainians. The illegal occupation and annexation, which we will never recognize, which not only brought Russian troops and aggressors into the Crimean Peninsula, but also is turning it, militarizing it, and turning it from a very beautiful tourist and cultural location into a military base, which is threatening everyone in the Black Sea region. And actually the dominance in the Black Sea region is something that is becoming the increased risk for not only, again, Ukraine, but for the region in general and for all the democratic Black Sea region countries. We will not rest, and together with Crimean Tatars and with the diaspora around the globe, we are doing everything together with our allies in order to bring the illegal annexation to an end and to see Crimean Tatars and Crimea back where they truly belong, for Ukraine to be whole again, because without Crimea, we will never feel whole and we will never feel free and territorially integral. For that, in this year, as you know, in August, we will have the inaugural meeting of the Crimean platform. And this is a platform and the instrument for all the freedom-loving people to get together and discuss practical instruments, ways, and roadmap of what we together will do and will not rest and will not stop until Crimea is back. Our diversity, our tragic and heroic pasts, our love for freedom, and more importantly, our willingness to fight for this freedom is something that makes us stronger and something that gives us not hope, but actually gives us confidence that Crimea will be back, regardless of how much time, efforts, and resources it will take us. And that together there will be a day when we will raise our flags in every city and every town and every village in Crimea. And I hope that that day will be sooner rather than later. So with that, I look forward to the excellent discussion today. And I'm especially happy that we will have not only our distinguished diasporas, the Ukrainian community, which is very helpful and very supportive and very active here, our Crimean Tatar diaspora, actually that's our common, Crimean Ukrainian diaspora here, but more importantly, the young people. Young people who not only do it more creatively than we do, who not only are more energetic, but it also gives us confidence that all of the issues which are the priorities for us, they will be even more important priorities for the young people. And our fight will be continued, and our fight will generate the victory for all of us together. So again, happy Crimean Tatar Flag Day for everyone, and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. We can't wait to keep celebrating this day in the future, as you said, hopefully in person one day. I know we will have some not only interesting remarks, but there's a video presentation about the history behind this day and why it's very important. It's unfortunate that over the past, sorry, I'm just getting some kind of alert. Over the past year, we have not been able to gather in person. And there have been a lot of historic events over the past year. I am getting some mix up here. There have been a lot of historic events over the past year that we haven't been able to celebrate, but in some ways we've been able to communicate a little bit more through Zoom and virtual events. So hopefully this kind of commemoration can happen both virtually and in person going on to the future. Our next guest is equally versed in this topic, as he has been representing Ukraine at the United Nations for many, many years now. I speak of Yuri Vitrenko, who is the Charge d'Affaires at the Permanent Mission of Ukraine to the United Nations. Pan Yuri, the floor is yours. Pan Yuri, I think we have some audio problems. Hold on. Try it again. No, we're getting some feedback. Could you try to log in again, and we can maybe skip over with Pan Alexei? We heard you loud and clear earlier, but for some reason I'm getting a feedback on and it's coming up on the YouTube as well. Okay. With that, Pan Alexei, if you are able to speak now, perhaps we can skip over to you, yet another person with many years of experience on the diplomatic stage. And we will turn to Pan Alexei. For those of you who received the program, he is the Consul General of Ukraine in the United States. And therefore not only has direct information regarding issues regarding to passportization, but has the information regarding what is happening overall diplomatically regarding that issue. So Pan Alexei, I'm going to put the spotlight on you now as we await in the background for Pan Yuri to join us.
Дякую, пане Андрію. Чи мене чути?
Чуємо.
Прекрасно. Distinguished participants, доброго дня всім. One small correction, I'm a Consul General not in the whole of United States, but just for New York, and its consular district. Indeed, the current situation in Crimea since its occupation by Russia in 2014 can be characterized as continuing deterioration in all areas, from the peninsula's environmental degradation caused by its militarization to ongoing systemic violations of human rights and cynical neglection by Russia of its obligations as occupying power under relevant humanitarian law conventions. More than 500,000 Russian citizens have already been moved to Crimea in order to change the ethnic picture and destroy the identity of Ukrainians and the indigenous people of the peninsula, Crimean Tatars. along with conscription of Ukrainian citizens residing on the temporary occupied territory of Crimea for service in the Russian military, that also stipulates a clear violation of the 1949 Fourth Geneva Convention. The occupying power conducts a large-scale coercive obtaining of Russian passports as an element of oppression policies against the citizens of Ukraine who remain in occupation and are in fact denied any right of choice. Besides, if residents of Crimea refused to obtain Russian passports, they were artificially limited in their rights to employment, medical care, social and pension benefits. The absence of Russian passports often became the ground for forced deportation and ban to enter the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. Coercion into Russian citizenship has also been an integral part of persecution by the occupying authorities of pro-Ukrainian activists and journalists. Ukrainian citizens were also forced to obtain Russian passports in order to keep their homes and property on the occupied peninsula. In this regard, a decree depriving Ukrainian citizens of the right to own land in the temporarily occupied Crimea, signed by Putin, became another step towards forcing the inhabitants of Crimea into Russian citizenship and a gross violation of international law. Ukraine strongly condemns such crimes committed by Russia, resulted in reportedly passportization of up to 2.5 million Ukrainians in Crimea, and remains determined to protect the rights and interests of Ukrainian citizens living under occupation in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. Speaking of previous Crimean Tatar Flag Day celebrations, I'd like to share one personal recollection. Hope Ayla Hanum will also recall this day of June 26 in 2018, when we Ukrainian diplomats and representatives of the Crimean Tatar diaspora together marked the Crimean Tatar Flag Day at our Consulate General in New York. There was a wonderful event. Pieces of touching Crimean Tatar poetry performed very professionally, charming dances and songs by Crimean Tatar youth in front of the two beautiful flags, the state national flag of Ukraine and the Crimean Tatar flag side by side. In addition to strong feeling of unity, there was another symbolic moment that day. At the end of celebrations, the youngest Crimean Tatar participants received their first ever Ukrainian passports arrived to the consulate the day before.
Yes.
This better than anything proves that forceful automatic acquisition of Russian citizenship by the citizens of Ukraine residing in the temporarily occupied territory is not and will not be recognized by Ukraine and cannot be considered the grounds for the loss of the Ukrainian citizenship. That means, despite all the Russian mantras, Crimea is Ukraine. The corresponding legal provision is clearly stipulated by the law of Ukraine on ensuring the rights and freedoms of citizens and legal regime in the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine of April 2014. Unfortunately, COVID-related quarantine measures moved us from bright offline forms of activities to Zoom, WebEx, and other online meetings. But on the eve of the promised reopening of the New York City, I wish to just reconfirm the consulate's readiness to host new joint events, bringing closer the date of celebration of the Crimean Tatar Flag Day, where it should be, in Crimea. As the American cities, states, and federal institutions are seemingly about to return to the normal life, let us together spare no effort in convincing all the relevant authorities and appropriate personalities in vital need for stronger support of Ukraine in our countering Russian aggression and restoring sovereignty over the Crimean Peninsula. Ukraine has already introduced a very promising tool, the International Crimea Platform. Let's, with the due support of international community, make it fully instrumental. I'm confident the stronger our consolidation and teamwork are, the sooner our two beautiful flags will be flying together over the occupied and liberated Crimea. Let's make Ukraine whole again. I thank you.
Thank you, Hen Consul, and thank you for adding that correction. Maybe it seems at times with the amount of states and territories you have to cover that you are the Consul General for all of us here in the United States. But for those watching and perhaps do not understand the system of diplomats here in the United States, it's good to get a sense of how many different ways there are to connect with the United States, with the Ukrainian government here in the United States, whether it's the permanent mission, which we're going to hear from a little bit, which is located also in New York City. We began hearing from the Embassy of Ukraine, which is in Washington, D.C., and also in several locations throughout the United States, there are also these consulate generals. So especially for the youth, we will be asking to be as involved as ever before in motivating and being active in civic life, advocating for making Ukraine whole again. It is very good for you to orient yourself in terms of who these diplomats are. And if you haven't had the opportunity to attend an event, as Mr. Holubov mentioned, Ayla has been there many times. And when he mentioned that event in 2018 about Crimean Tatar Flag Day, I couldn't even scroll down to 2018 because there have been so many other events with Ayla and Pan Alexei at the Consulate General here in New York. So with that, I think we're back on with Pan Yuri Vitrenko. If I can switch over to you now, and let's see how that works.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Great. Apologies for this technical glitch. First of all, it is a great pleasure for me to participate in today's event dedicated to the Day of the Crimean Tatar Flag. Let me first of all start by thanking all its organizers, Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, World Congress of Crimean Tatars, and of course our good friend Ayla, who is already seen as part of the mission of Ukraine to the United Nations, as one of our staff, in fact. I also personally like very much our today's topic, or if you like, our today's motto, making Ukraine whole again. It is very succinct, energetic, and right to the point. Since 2010, and every June 26, Crimean Tatar flags are raised all over Ukraine, as well as all Ukrainian embassies abroad. As a matter of fact, as many of you know and probably have seen, the Crimean Tatar and Ukraine's flags stand alongside each other in hallways of the permanent mission of Ukraine to the United Nations. And not only on Crimean Tatar Flag Day, rest assured, or on the eve. And I also hope that you can see the golden tamga behind me that we proudly have on display in our offices every day as well. During the long years of suffering and exile, the Crimean Tatars courageously preserved their identity and culture, their traditions and symbols, after returning from deportation to their historic land. The Crimean Tatars demonstrated to the whole world a remarkable national unity and national revival. That is why the Crimean Tatar flag has become an integral symbol of unity, succession of generations, and centuries-old struggle of Crimean Tatars for their freedom. Unfortunately, due to the ongoing Russian aggression, we are witnessing tragic recurrence of history, as the distinguished ambassador of Ukraine to the United States already mentioned, threatening human rights, national identity, and symbols of the Crimean Tatar people. Since 2014, the occupying power has been imprisoning both Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars for displaying their flags in the open. It is almost surreal that in the temporarily occupied Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, the Ukrainian flag, when displayed, is deemed a prohibited symbol, while the Crimean Tatar flag is treated as an extremist one. Russia persistently persecutes Ukrainian and Crimean Tatars, imprisons them for their political views and national symbols, brutally violates human rights and disregards all international treaties and United Nations General Assembly decisions in Crimea. The discriminated Crimean Tatars make up the majority of the illegally detained persons due to a clear pro-Ukrainian position. That is why the golden tanga of the blue Crimean Tatar flag has become a symbol of indomitability of the Crimean Tatar people, a symbol of the fight for their rights, opposition to the Kremlin's imperial ambitions, and of course, the struggle for the return of Crimea to Ukraine. Distinguished colleagues, dear friends, here in New York at the United Nations headquarters, day in and day out, we are alerting the international community about the human rights catastrophe in the temporarily occupied Crimea. Still, as evidenced by the facts documented in the numerous reports of the United Nations Secretary General and Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the occupying Russian administration continues to violate the rights of the Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars unabatedly, including the right to use their native language and national symbols. Thanks to these efforts of Ukrainian diplomats, it is clearly registered at the highest international level, including in the relevant United Nations General Assembly resolutions, that due to the ongoing temporary occupation of Crimea, citizens of Ukraine, primarily those belonging to Crimean Tatars, cannot fully enjoy preservation and promotion of their ethnic, cultural, linguistic, and religious identity and rights. In its numerous resolutions, the General Assembly resolutely condemned violations, abuses, measures, and practices of discrimination against the residents in the temporarily occupied Crimea, including Crimean Tatars, by the Russian occupation authorities. In particular, the international community, through the United Nations General Assembly, has been urging the Russian Federation as regards Crimea to restore enjoyment of the rights of all individuals without any discrimination based on origins or religion or belief, revoke the decisions that banned the cultural and religious institutions, non-governmental organizations, human rights organizations, and media outlets, restore enjoyment of the rights of individuals belonging to ethnic communities in Crimea, in particular Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars. Moreover, every March since 2014, Mission of Ukraine, together with our partners here at the United Nations, initiate consideration of the Crimean issue by the United Nations Security Council in the so-called ARIA formal meetings. To this, we can also add the, of course, United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Even though this list of United Nations bodies seized of Crimean Tatars issue will be far from exhausted. Finally, we are determined to stay this course and keep the Crimean Tatar flag high on the United Nations agenda until the very day Ukraine is whole again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pan Yuri Vitrenko. Thank you for your remarks. And thank you to all of our three diplomat speakers who began this, because I possibly you coordinated, but it sounds like you all bring a specific aspect to this conversation that we need to hear about. And with Mr. Yuri Vitrenko's remarks, not only about the specific work being done at the United Nations, but the important work I think that we'll keep re-emphasizing today, and that's that this process is a multilateral process on behalf of the advocates I'm speaking here. So it's not just the reliance on individual actors within the Ukrainian government or one government or another, but it relies on all of us who are watching today, all of us, especially those names who I see in the list of attendees, to keep being actively involved in this process. And I think all of us are grateful that we now have this Crimean platform being inaugurated in Ukraine that we've heard about from our first three speakers. I think we'll hear a little bit more about that throughout the summer, not only as we hear which important delegations are coming to sit in Ukraine to talk about Crimea, but it's also going to be incumbent on the advocates who are watching today, perhaps some of those people who haven't necessarily been active as members wherever you're watching from, because we are broadcasting internationally. Perhaps you haven't been an active advocate in calling for your member of parliament, or here in the United States to have your member of Congress be actively involved in this. And this is a great opportunity that both the diplomats of Ukraine, the worldwide Crimean Tatar diaspora, under the Kurultai and the Mejlis, and represented here by Ayla Bakali, all of us working in concert, and that includes the worldwide Ukrainian diaspora. We even have representatives of the Ukrainian World Congress watching. So it's all of us working together, and it's going to be especially on the youth, which we'll hear about a little bit later today. It'll be on all of us to make sure that we see that day that Ukraine is whole again, and then it'll be especially on the youth to see what that new Ukraine will be like, because it'll be full of life and it'll be full of all of our peoples working together. I believe, if I might just double check with Ayla, I believe we now have that special video presentation. So that's going to require me to make sure that that person is enabled. And Ayla, who is it who's going to be presenting the video for us?
Emir Ibrahim.
Okay, so Emir, I'm bringing up, I see you, Emir. I'm going to make sure that you have the permission to share the video. So I'm making
yes, but can we just waiting for maybe 20 minutes?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. This is what working virtually does. We can hop over to an entirely different country if we need to. But if that's the case, then yes, absolutely. In that case, I would turn to Mr. Anton Kornevich, who has joined us today. For those of us who are active in this cause, we certainly have heard him speak before. For those of you who haven't, you should absolutely be following his writing, which is very important and documents a lot of the issues involved in what's happening in Crimea today, and eventually what will be Ukraine whole. So, Mr. Anton Kornevich, if I can give you the spotlight, and the floor is yours.
Доброго дня, шановні колеги. Салям алейкум, dear friends, dear colleagues. Greetings from a very warm and hot Kiev, which is now really looks like some kind of a tropic or some kind of a, African climate country, but still very happy to be here today with you, and very happy to talk on the issue of the Day of Crimean Tatar National Flag, which we're going to commemorate on the 26th of June, so in 2 days later on. And actually this year, this is not only the Crimean National Flag Day. This year, on the 26th of June, we also commemorate the 30 years from the second Kurultai of Crimean Tatar people took place in Crimea. And also the 30 years of the establishment of Mejlis of Crimean Tatar people, which of course we do believe and we do consider and we do recognize as the highest executive body and representative body of the whole Crimean Tatar indigenous people. So this year, the Crimean Tatar National Flag Day is really a very deep and authoritative day to talk about the Crimean Tatars, to talk about their rights and needs as indigenous people of Ukraine and of Crimea, and to talk about the issues which are important for them, taking into account the very difficult situation which they find themselves in the temporarily occupied Crimean Peninsula, in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. The distinguished diplomats talked a lot about our foreign policy issues. And of course, from my side, I would also tell that Crimea Platform is the #1 initiative for foreign policy of Ukraine in this year. And of course, we are all working hard together the representatives of all different state agencies and state bodies of Ukraine in order to have the inaugural summit happen on in the best possible way, on the most high-ranking level. And we believe that this summit can really bring the Crimea issue high on the agenda of the international community, can have a final document in the form of Crimea Declaration or Crimea Charter, and can be the first point in the long way and big way of Crimea platform work, which of course is going to finish only when Crimea will be deoccupied and Ukraine will be whole again. But I also want to point out some important aspects in internal policy, which we reached lately, namely in 2 years, so that our colleagues in different countries, in different continents, namely in the US, get the sense how Ukraine is working on the issues related to the preservation of the rights and freedoms of Crimean Tatar indigenous people. So first of all, for His Excellency, Mr. President Volodymyr Zelensky, the issue of preservation of Crimean Tatar rights and their rights of indigenous people of Ukraine is very important, is of high priority. And that is why His Excellency, Mr. President, submitted the draft law on the indigenous people of Ukraine to the Ukrainian Parliament, Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, on 18th of May 2021, on the day of commemoration of the victims of the genocide of Crimean Tatar people in 1944. We do believe and we do work hard in order to satisfy that Verkhovna Rada, that the Parliament adopts the law on indigenous people of Ukraine, and that this law can be adopted before the inaugural summit of the Crimea platform takes place. So this is a long-awaited draft law, which is long-awaited by the representatives of the Crimean Tatar people, both in Ukraine and abroad. And we believe that this is a very important initiative, and the initiative of His Excellency, Mr. President. The other important initiative which we also adopted, and which is important in relation to Crimean Tatars and their rights, is the strategy of deoccupation and reintegration of the temporarily occupied territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. So now we do have a strategy, a framework strategic document, which sets the concrete principles and rules which are legally binding for all the state bodies of Ukraine who work on the issues related to Crimea, is the occupation and reintegration. And of course, strategy of the occupation and reintegration of Crimea does have provisions which deal with the rights of Crimean Tatar indigenous people. Moreover, His Excellency President this year twice addressed the citizens of Ukraine, and namely Crimean residents. The first time on the occasion of the day of the fight against the occupation of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol on the 26th of February. And the second time on 18th of May, in the day of commemoration of victims of the genocide of Crimean Tatar people in 1944. And if the respective audience, distinguished audience, didn't hear the second address, I would really suggest you to look and to listen to it. It is available online because it's a very emotional and a very, I would say, deep address by the president, which is not just an official statement, which really is an individual and emotional one. Moreover, for 2 years, in 2020 and in 2021, the president signs the respective decrees, which are signed on the day of 26th of February, on the day of combat of occupation of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. And in these decrees, he recognizes the heroism, the high level of patriotism of Crimean Tatars who protected and protect Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity in Crimea, who did this in 2014 in the biggest pro-Ukrainian rally on the 26th of February 2014 in Simferopol, near the building of the Parliament of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, and who do continue to support the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, even in this hard and difficult situation which they now face in temporarily occupied Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. Moreover, this year, the president gave the task to the cabinet of ministers of Ukraine to develop a strategy of the development of Crimean Tatar language together with the alphabet in Latin graphics. Again, the long-awaited desire and will of the Crimean Tatar indigenous people to have the official alphabet in Latin language. We do hope that rather soon this strategy would be adopted. Moreover, the Cabinet of Ministers has adopted the concept of the development of Crimean Tatar language, which is now already in force, so that now Ukrainian state does have a concrete policy on how to protect, promote, and develop the Crimean Tatar language of Crimean Tatar indigenous people. What I also need to mention is that in 2020, on the day of the independence of Ukraine, the president of Ukraine has awarded some Crimean Tatars, activists, human rights defenders, and famous, I would say, cultural individuals, the high state awards and orders. And namely, what is most important, I think, that he awarded the Order of the Merit to Crimean Tatar political prisoner Server Mustafayev, the coordinator of Crimea Solidarity Group, a great human rights initiative in Crimea, which works in order to protect the Crimean political prisoners, namely Crimean Tatars, of course, because most of the Crimean political prisoners are Crimean Tatars, and also to assist and help their families. And actually, quite a cynical thing that the Russian Federation, the occupation authorities, arrested Server Mustafayev and keeps him in the jail for actually his human rights work and his work as human rights activists and human rights defenders. All this to say is just to get the idea and the sense that the issue of support of Crimean Tatars and the issue of support of the rights and freedoms of Crimean Tatars is very important for Ukraine. And now we need really to fulfill this task of having a law of Ukraine on indigenous people, which would once and forever state in the legal system of Ukraine that Crimean Tatars are indigenous people of Ukraine, and all the rights of indigenous people which are enlined in the international legal documents, namely in the UN resolution, UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. All the rights of indigenous people are the rights of Crimean Tatar people in Ukraine. We really hope that both the national flag of Ukraine and the national flag of Crimean Tatar indigenous people will fly in many capitals, in many towns and cities throughout the world on the day of 26th of June. And we, of course, believe that these two flags will fly once over Simferopol, Bakhchisarai, Eskikirim, Kerch, Feodosia, Sevastopol, and many other our Ukrainian cities and towns throughout our Ukrainian Crimea. So many thanks for this great opportunity to talk today to community in the US, but also in other countries. Many thanks to the organizers, to Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, to World Congress of Crimean Tatar People, to Miss Ayla Bakali, who does great job in promotion of Crimean Tatar issue in the US and in the UN, which is very important. And we are always ready here in Ukraine to be partners in every issue which is connected to the support of Crimean Tatar indigenous people. I thank you.
Now I'm not muted. Thank you, Anton. And thank you for all those very relevant portions of your presentation. I was particularly moved, and I always like to hear our history reminded that this week we will be recognizing the 30th anniversary of the Second Kurultai. And this very much resonates in our conversations with our Ukrainian American youth. We've over the past year have been celebrating events or doing historical events about the 30th anniversary of Ukraine. And some of those events are about what it was like back then for younger people. And again, we are emphasizing the youth here taking part today. And when we have spoken at some of our events previously, we have had the opportunity to hear from students in 1989, 1990, 91, surrounded by a population who did not dream enough of a free and whole Ukraine. And that very much resonated with people, our youth today. And possibly similarly, there are Crimean Tatars who are surrounded in Crimea today with not being able to see Ukraine free and whole. And it is, as you mentioned, these organizations that are organizing events like today, whether it's from the Ukrainian diaspora, whether it's the World Congress of Crimean Tatars, who is keeping that hope alive in concert with all of our wonderful diplomats today as well, bringing this attention worldwide. I'd like to take a second to thank the person who reached out to me, who mentioned that one of our live feeds was mislabeled. So I've gone ahead, and sometimes Facebook gives me one of our previous conferences. So we've updated that. If you're sharing the Facebook live stream on UCCA's Facebook page, that's been updated with the program now. And I would like to check in with Emil one more time. Do you want to run the video now, or should we turn to Denis?
We have some technical problems, and our media manager is trying to send me a video, but if we have give us some more time, please.
Well, we have plenty more speakers, so and in that respect, I would like to bring on Denis Sauchenko, as I was just speaking about the events of 30 years ago. Denis is actively gathering the living history that will, for all of us who are of a certain age, will now be speaking of in 30 and 40 years what it was like during this occupation. So for those of us who have heard from in other historical panels about Ukraine's independence or the rebirth of the Kurultai in 1991, we've obviously heard from the great speakers that were mentioned by Anton. We've heard from Mustafa Aha and Rafat Aha, what it was like, and these people that Denis will speak about, these are the people who we will be talking up for decades after the fact. So Denis, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, Your Excellencies, Mr. Dobryansky, thank you for the invitation. It is a little bit hard for me to talk about the events of 30 years ago, because somewhere that time I was born, but still my organization, NGO Crimea SS, that I'm honored to represent today, is working for the 8th year from the very beginning of the occupation of Crimea. And one of the very important goals that we pursue is monitoring and gathering information about the situation in Crimea, changes that Crimea suffered from, negative changes that Crimea suffered from when the Russian Federation entered it, conquered it illegally, and of course the human rights violations that that have a systematic character, unfortunately. Today we commemorate the Crimean Tatar flag, and I would like to say that it is a very beautiful festivity. Of course, for the last many years, we are used to talk about Crimean Tatars and about Crimea in a very negative way, because there is a lot of violations. There is a lot of suffering on the peninsula, and there is a lot of suffering on the side of Crimean Tatar people. But coming back to the roots, to 1991, Crimean Tatar flag day, and the flag itself shows us how beautiful and sophisticated Crimean Tatar culture is, and how deeply rooted Crimean Tatar people is. And, you know, I think that this day is a very good basis, is a very good day to just thank all the Crimean Tatar people for how close we are, despite how different Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars are. And I think that the neighborhood between Ukrainian nation and Crimean Tatar people has to be kind of an example for many, many other nations, for many other ethnic groups, for many other communities on how we should be co-living. Today, I was asked to talk about quite a sad topic about the situation with political prisoners. Unfortunately, despite a lot of efforts, both from the state agencies and civil society organizations, the situation and the number of political prisoners in Crimea, including Crimean Tatars, is very high. According to information from our organization, NGO Crimea SOS, as of the end of May 2021, there are 102 political prisoners being detained or imprisoned. Among 102 people, 80, so the vast majority are Crimean Tatars. 76 of them being prosecuted or imprisoned under so-called Hizb ut-Tahrir criminal case, which is in a nutshell being totally illegal, fundamentally illegal, but also this is, we consider it as persecution for just exercising different religion from what Russian Federation consider as something common. I would like to mention that recently the number of political prisoners is being increased. Russian Federation conducts very aggressive policy against Crimean Tatars in Crimea. And moreover, those people who is already detained, they are in a very serious condition. A lot of violations are applied against them. Inhuman treatment is applied against them. They are not allowed to exercise their religion. They are not allowed to stay in human conditions. They are being treated very harshly. And all the appeals, both from Ukrainian state agencies, both from activists, from here on the mainland of Ukraine, or from activists who, despite the threat to their health, life, and freedom, continue to support political prisoners on the occupied peninsula. They are still being violated, being deprived of basic rights, being deprived of basic and necessary assistance. And in this relation, I would like to remind you of the situation of Servet Gaziev, Jamil Gafarov, Erfan Osmanov, and Lenur Khalilov. All four are being persecuted under already mentioned Hizb ut-Tahrir case, and all four have a very serious health condition, but despite it, they are being declined from necessary medical assistance. And of course, we pray and we fight for them to be primarily released, but secondly, to just receive the necessary support, both from the administration, from occupational prisons, but as well from the other relevant stakeholders. Of course, a very important question is the question of how can we help political prisoners. In this relation, I would like to remind you of what even Mustafa Djemilev was saying, and all the former political prisoners that already are on the mainland of Ukraine. They say that the main tool, that the main weapon that the aggressor uses against political prisoners is isolation, is being stigmatized, is being separated both from the close ones, both from the supporters, but also to be separated from any information. What the aggressor wants when it deals with political prisoners is to make them feel like no one will help them, like no one is thinking about them. So when we ask ourselves, how can I help the situation? How can I help political prisoners? The first and the most important thing that we can do is just write them a letter or send them a postcard. Remind them that they are being remembered, that they are being supported, even distantly. Of course, it is very hard, and I strongly advise you to do so in a very non-political way in Russian language, because the administration of prisons carefully looking at what information is being sent to political prisoners, and only a very small part of the letters and of the information is being transferred to them, but still it is of the most importance to them. So please, if you want to help them, write them. And of course, you can also mention them, because after the big liberation of political prisoners happened in September 2019, there is a strong feeling that we don't talk about political prisoners enough, that we don't know about them well. And this is the burden that we have to take, and this is the issue that we have to resolve. Activists, just ordinary people who just care about the situation. Additionally, a very important issue that we could contribute, each of us, is supporting families of political prisoners, is supporting families of victims of enforced disappearances, is supporting all those people who actively suffered from human rights violations in Crimea. This support can also be in a form of communication, of direct communication, of saying that we are sorry, of saying that we support them, of saying that we remember them, and of saying that we really, truly, honestly want Crimea to be deoccupied and to be free again. Additionally, of course, I can't miss a chance of saying that there are at least 168 children of political prisoners left without the care of their fathers. For the majority of them, almost all of them, the father was not only a very important figure in their life, but also the only breadwinner. And in this relation, of course, I call you to support families of political prisoners and victims of enforced disappearances financially. And there are, for example, the company Waiting at Home, Чекаємо вдома, organized by our organization, but also many campaigns organized by our partner organizations here in Ukraine, all the money from which are going to support families of political prisoners or other victims of human rights violations. And of course, I would like to end my short speech by something positive. I would like to thank all the related persons, and I would like to to share a happy news that another resolution of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe that is called on violations of human rights against Crimean Tatars was voted and adopted just yesterday. And it is, despite it is quite a small step, but it is very important step for Ukrainian side to fight for Crimean Tatars, to fight for the occupation of Crimea, to fight for termination of systematic human rights violations and the policy of terror conducted by the Russian Federation in Crimea. So I would like to mention this resolution and praise the efforts from many people, including civil society organizations, but primarily by the delegation of Ukraine in the Parliamentary Assembly in Council of Europe for the ongoing and long-going work. I would like to hope and to say that I hope and all of us hope that this resolution is another step, but not the last step, for us to bring hope back and make Ukraine whole again. And of course, I would like to say that I'm very grateful to organizers, to Ayla Hanum, and to all related for the opportunity to speak at such event. It is of the most importance for us to bring the topic of Crimea back into the focus of a very wide community of a wide range of people, and this is what is happening now, and I'm very proud to be part of it. So thank you very much. Crimea is Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Denis, and thank you for your wonderful way of phrasing everything. You talked about the immense human toll on especially the political prisoners. Thank you for bringing up the families. Thank you for bringing up the volunteers. And I bring it back to how you thanked the Crimean Tatar people from the very beginning. Because you didn't do what I did, which I when I presented it, I talked about the heroes that we will be talking about for decades on, and whether we call them ordinary people, they are really doing a lot of heroes work, because this is an all-in effort that everybody needs to be involved with, and that not only do we talk about the political prisoners, but as Anton mentioned earlier, the incredible process of making sure that the language instruction will be so codified in Ukrainian schools. I can guarantee you that one of the topics that is always brought up among the Ukrainian diaspora is when can we get those official Crimean Tatar language instruction from Ukraine, because it's absolutely something that it's not only something that will be learned and studied in Ukraine, but absolutely throughout the diaspora as well. So it's not only the people that we think of traditionally as those heroes that we will think about, but it'll be those language instructors who kept the language alive in the diaspora and brought it up through legislation, as Anton mentioned, in Ukraine. And in that respect, it'll also be people like our next speaker, who I've had the pleasure with working at the United Nations, as well as at various events throughout the world with the Crimean Tatar diaspora. Unfortunately, we would both like to have been in Crimea for the 30th anniversary of the Kurultai, but I have not had the pleasure of sharing the time with Ayla Bakali in Crimea as of yet. So we have been together at the Crimean World Congress of Crimean Tatars. We have been together. I have had the opportunity to meet with Crimean Tatar diaspora in other countries where the Ukrainian diaspora is organized. But I will wait the day when Ayla will take me around Crimea itself, to those wonderful place names that will have Crimean Tatar names, and where we will celebrate all those people who brought Crimea back to making Ukraine whole again. And with that, Ayla, the floor is yours. Oh, just watch the unmute there. Yes.
Okay, very good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I have been just listening to everyone so intensely and have been enjoying it. And I wanted to contribute humbly, if I may, on the draft law 5506 that Anton also alluded to in his presentation. I find that to be a very personal draft bill that has been introduced by His Excellency President Volodymyr Zelensky. I had the opportunity to ask President Zelensky a question from the audience during his visit at the Ukrainian Institute of America in September 2019. He was here during a working visit, participating at the 74th session of the UN General Assembly. And I was among the representatives of the Ukrainian American community in New York. And my question was, given his recent presidential win, what were his plans on the deoccupation of the Crimean Peninsula? He was indeed very honest and responded at length on the difficulty of the situation. But I realize now that in fact, he has given great thought at length, not only in initiating the International Crimean Platform, but also the text draft law 5506 on indigenous people of Ukraine. It has been our long-standing goal and aspiration of the Crimean Tatar elders and leadership on ways to reposition ourselves as indigenous people in order to gain greater rights and resources. President Zelensky's bill does exactly that. And according to the bill, the Crimean Tatars, Crimean Karaites, and the Krymchaks have been identified as indigenous people of Ukraine. And if you will, of course, as indigenous Ukrainians. The bill establishes our human rights within the context of the Ukrainian Constitution and its respective laws, as well as the international law. E.g., that includes the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It is noteworthy to indicate that UN DRIP does not define indigenousness, and an official definition of indigenous has not been adopted by any UN system. But according to the UN, the most fruitful approach is to identify who are the indigenous people rather than define indigenous people. And President Zelensky's bill does exactly that. This is based on the fundamental criteria of self-identification, as underlined in a number of human rights documents. The criteria, or shall we say, understanding the term who is indigenous, who and who is not, may be based on the following criteria. And I would like to just briefly identify those in bullet points. And that is, one, who is indigenous people. On who is indigenous people, the UN system has developed a modern understanding based on the term indigenous, and which is self-identification by the indigenous people as on the individual level and accepted by the community as their member, and the existence of historical continuity rather than historical priority with pre-colonial and pre-settler societies. We are the ancient people of Crimea. Strong link to territories and surrounding natural resources, distinct social, economic, or political systems, which we have, the Kurultai and the Meclis, a distinct language, culture, and beliefs, and a formation of people that is non-dominant groups within society, with a resolve to maintain and reproduce our ancient ancestral environment and systems as distinct peoples and communities. While with these mentions, we can cover a large subject that touches on many disciplines. President Zelensky's bill, which recognizes indigenous rights, is truly linked for the survival of Crimean Tatars and our communities. Moreover, this draft bill that has been introduced in the Verkhovna Rada will grant indigenous people their broad cultural, economic, educational, and linguistic rights. So we as indigenous people can create our own educational institutions, learn our own native language, as well as create our own media, and with that, given the right to receive funding via representative bodies out of the state budget. And in a way, it is creating a non-dependency structure, which is very important within a developing democracy, especially arising out of the former Soviet Union system. The sense of independence, sense of self-sufficiency is critical for democracy to succeed. And today, we have all gathered here on Crimean Tatar Flag Day to honor and honoring all together the deep emotional symbolism that represents us, our survival as a people. The Crimean Tatar flag for us is a unique window into our history, culture, art, as indigenous people of Ukraine. The historical prominence of the flag represents our direct historical linkage with the Crimean Peninsula. When we as Crimean Tatars speak to indigenous people movements in the sense of pursuing a process of decolonization, we speak to Russian history of imperialism of the Crimean Peninsula on the first annexation in 1782. It is at this time that Russian imperialistic policies considered indigenous Crimean Tatars as terra nullius land, meaning void, empty land, and which began its systemic confiscation of indigenous lands. And when we speak to the 1944 en masse deportation from our homeland, we speak to Soviet Russia. And when we speak about our return to our homeland, we speak to returning to Crimean Peninsula of Ukraine. When we speak against the second illegal annexation of Crimea and its deoccupation, we speak to the Russian Federation. President Zelensky's draft law was introduced on the commemoration of the 1944 en masse deportation. And this is, in fact, this bill is a concrete endeavor initiative to really correct a historical wrong that was committed by Russia and in which Ukraine is endeavoring to address. And as indigenous people, this is a tremendous recognition that we need to speak of and solidify and bring forth our relationship within that context. The Ukraine also, since its adoption of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, really is also a significance of its efforts to build relations between indigenous people and the Ukrainian government. That is the initiative of this draft law as well, because it is at the UN Permanent Forum at Indigenous people that the forum itself does not provide answers. It is us that we present them our situation, and through dialogue and through consensus recommendations are provided. And in that respect, this draft law is implementing one of the UN Declarations of Rights articles in implementing and solidifying the rights of its indigenous people. And as everyone was speaking, I made some cryptic notes, and I would like to just share them with you. And that is, and the draft law, while when a legislator creates a draft law that addresses directly the issue of its indigenous people or the concern at hand, it has tremendous ramifications that is positive that it did not consider. And this draft law, for me, as an indigenous person and as an indigenous representative, prompted me to also think introspectively as indigenous Crimean Tatars, how we begin to bring and develop a new narrative. As during the Soviet years, the Crimean Tatar narrative worked perfectly well. It was against a totalitarian regime. It was a narrative based on recollecting our memories. It was a movement back to return to our land, and that energized us to return. But now today is different. The Ukrainian parliament has recognized the deportation of Crimean Tatars as genocide, and it led the way for two other nations, Latvia and Lithuania, to also adopt at its respective parliaments that the deportation was genocide. This is tremendous currency for indigenous people. So as we are moving forward, also Crimean Tatars, through our youth, and many times the youth was mentioned, are critical in developing our new narrative. And this narrative is how we can make Ukraine whole again, because it is the intention of the occupier to take piecemeal of Ukraine, take one piece at a time. And so the solidification of our values, of our energies, of our projects become critical. And I think this is something that that I'm very proud of President Zelensky, because it was a bill that was introduced many times, I believe for 30 years, and through 8 convocations of the Verkhovna Rada. And so this time, I really believe that timing is very important, and hopefully that this draft bill will be adopted, and we will do everything in our power and our ability and capacity to make it happen. And I would like to close by thanking all the participants here. Truly, you are mentors to the Crimean Tatar youth. This long arm reach that sometimes we get intimidated, especially when we are approaching a new platform, and your consistent appearance with us through this platform, through UCCA and through many other platforms creates a familiarity that is really highly effective and very productive. So whether you know it or not, but you are our mentor. So with that, we will make Ukraine whole again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayla. Very prescient and very timely topic of discussion. I'm glad that you chose that as your topic of emphasis. For those of us who have had the opportunity, especially those involved on the panel today, whether they're youth or diplomats or activists, a lot of us understand the importance of the Indigenous Peoples Forum at the United Nations, and referring to something like UN DRIP, perhaps related to a small amount of the world, to people who understood that. But for those of us with news alerts, I know that that topic has been discussed a lot since the developments in Canada over the last month. And we know that the Canadian Parliament has been discussing, including elements of that, which is very, this is one of those moments where a lot of the time, the rest of the world tries to tell Ukraine that they need to get in line with the rest of the world. And here's one of those moments where the law that you're mentioning, the draft law in Ukraine, is something that the rest of the world can actually look on as elements of legislation that have been passed or working towards final ratification in Ukraine, that the world can look on as an example of how you include elements of UN DRIP in your own national legislation. Because it's true, a lot of the world doesn't recognize the rights of Indigenous peoples, what that means. And if we look at a country like Ukraine, it's another way that Ukraine is innovating and can be an example for the rest of the world. So I'm glad you just brought up that topic. That was a wonderful way to bring it up. I believe, let me check with Emil first. Emil, how are we doing on the video?
Yeah, I can share screen now.
Excellent.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
Okay, so I'm going to allow you to do that. I'm going to give you co-host.
Yeah,
Hold on. Where are you? There you are, Emil. Sorry. Co-host permission now for Emil, and you will have the spotlight on you. So let me just remove that. Move and remove, and we're going to Emil. Pardon all of this moving around, everybody. Yep, it's the floor is yours.
I'll see.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Is there sound on it?
Are you hearing?
No, can you, sorry, this is just a technical thing for people. When you go to share screen, can you make sure on the bottom left-hand corner you enable share sound as well?
Sorry, 1 minute.
Yeah. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Are you hearing now?
It's paused.
Are you hearing?
No, it's paused. We don't see it playing yet.
Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, there.
And now?
No, one more.
No more?
Hit play again. Yes.
Okay.
Herkesге selamlar. Farklı yerlerde yaşayan Kırım Tatarlarga mühim olan milli bayrak günü arifesinde ben sizler için vlog hazırlamaga istedim. İşte başlayınız. Milli bayram, bayrak günü aslında devletçilikке ait olan bayrakka bağışlanılan. Kırım Tatarlar ya da Kırımlar devlet kurabilgen millettir. Bunun için bizde de milli bayrak günü vardır. Ya devlet kurabilgen millet nedir degen sual sizde peyda olabilir. Demek bu millet öz devletini kurabilir ve onun böyle ki bir tarihi vardır. Kırımlılar tarihinde uç devlet kurulacak şekli vardı. Kırım Hanlığı monarxi uslupte Kırım Milli Cumhuriyeti yani demokratik devleti bir işgal olgan Kırım Sovet Muhtariyeti. Farklı tarihi hadiselerde bizde farklı idare şekilleri vardı. Şimdiki vaktlargaca Kırımlarının o idare milli organları var ve onlar Ukrayna devleti içerisinde aktif devletçilik mevam yani pozisiyada bulunmaktalar. Onlar ise bütünlüğü halkara hukuklarına aitler. Vatanға avdet olgan son Kırımlılar milli organlarını seçip milli marş yani gimn ve milli bayrak seçkenler. İşte o böyledir. Böylece şimdiki kurultay 1917 senesi olan kurultay kanunlarının kullanıcıdır. Yani böylece 100 yıldan ziyade seçilgen bayrak bizim günlerimizge göre de gelir. Resmi olarak bayrak günü tamam iyunun 26. gününde endi 11 sene devamında bayram olarak geçirilir. Aytmaga gerek ki Kırım Tatarlarda ve bazı başka milletlerde 100 sene evvel sığayradan tigilmeunin anlagаны tek şimdi peyda olar. Misal olarak Ukrayna, Çekiyalı, Sırp, Hırvatlar gibi 100 sene evvel ve Yunanlar gibi 200 sene evvelkisi gibi tek şimdi bu milli romantikaya gelirler. Yani milli kıyafet, yırlar, milli karakter çizgileri ve ilahi. Bunda bizler gerçekten de birbirimizge oşayıq. Çünkü daima şark komşudan müstakilliğini almaga isteyir. 2004 seneden evvel olgan hadiselerini hatırlamak isteyim. Kırım paytaxtı Ahmejit yani Simferopol'de bu gün gerçekten de birleştirici günüdür. Kırım Tatarlarda dini ve yerli bayramlardan birleştirici günler bu matem günü ve bayrak günüdür. Azatlık ve Kırım Tatarlarının devletçilik timsali milli bayrak günü 2014 senesi Kırım Tatarlar Rus polis hadimlerinin içerisinde geçireydi.
Мероприятие можно только пройдя металлоискатели. Правоохранители рассказали, тут ищут оружие и взрывчатые вещества. Ну нельзя так не пускать, nельзя.
Elbette ki seneler milli bayrak gününü kaydetmeye ya uzak yerlerde verilir ya da Rusya bayraklarının ellerini alıp tek böylece geçirmeye verilir. Xitay, Ukrayna'da ve başka ülkelerde Kırımlılarının bayrak günü geçirip devam etmektedir. Farkı tek şunda, hafta yürüyüş ve yürüyüşlerde ve başka tedbirlerde Ukrayna bayraklarını yanına almağa bu fikirdeşlik ve anlayış temsalidir. Kırım'da Rusya bayraklarını yanına alması bu imkan ve çaresizlik timsalidir. Bugün hem Kırımlı hem Ukraynalılarga men birlik ve anlayışla mesuliyet ve parlak geleceğini dileyim.
Okay.
Thank you. That was a wonderful video because it really did capture all of the history that we're trying to encompass today. Let's see if we can get, sorry, I'm going to bring myself on. And more importantly, although we've had some greetings today, that was also one of the times where we included which in my mind goes hand in hand, and as was related by Muslim's video, Crimean Tatar symbols include the Crimean Tatar language, and we did not hear enough of it. And with the advocacy of Ayla and our Crimean Tatar friends here in the United States, UCCA, the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, is going to make sure that going forward with our Crimean Tatar platform, which we are sending out to all of the members of the United States Congress, we will make sure that that is not only translated in both Ukrainian and English, but the Crimean Tatar language as well. So this is a very good reminder for us that Crimean Tatar culture encompasses many forms, and all of them are important into the recognition of those indigenous rights that Ayla brought up. Ayla, would we like to turn to some of our youth delegates today? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I beg your pardon. Yes, I think our next speaker is Ervin Said Ghazi. He is an American Crimean Tatar youth from Brooklyn, New York, and we would love to hear what he has to say on this Crimean Tatar Flag Day. He's been on several times. He's been around.
All right, Ervin, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Dobry den. Salam alaikum to everyone. Again, as I'm here, I'm very excited to be here. And again, thank you everyone so much for organizing this, and also all the leaders who are participating here. It's great to hear everything that's being done towards reuniting Crimea with Ukraine. And it's also heartwarming to hear that people do care, and it's just really heartwarming. I guess just speaking from a Crimean Tatar youth perspective, I came to the United States when I was 16 years old, and I guess most of my life I did live in Crimea. So all of my Crimea experience at this point is based on memories. And every time I feel like when we speak around the family table about anything that's happening in Crimea, it's always a painful topic for all of us. It's always ends up with just very emotional moments. Just speaking about this entire situation up until this day, we're trying, for example, we're trying to go to Crimea for some family events, and it's just really hard to find a way to do that. So I just feel like a lot of people are being so yeah, it's just more of like family conversations around the table are very painful, and I very appreciative of all the activities. And thank you so much for Crimea SOS. Thank you so much for UCCA community and all the leaders again for making stuff happen. And obviously, I feel like at our level, it's very important to also voice our opinions and voice our grievances towards the oppressors. And we always have to stay kind of together. And I feel like we should not be stay silent towards this issue. And that's why, again, this is very important to have this kind of events, and hopefully going forward they will grow. I mean, we already have the social platforms going live to other people to hear, to acknowledge this that people do care. And it's very important to see that it will go a long way, and we have to kind of multiply and amplify this kind of events to other people. And with more unity, and the more people we have, I guess we'll have much bigger impact. Yeah, again, thank you so much for everyone for participating here. It's really heartwarming, and yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Ervin. And I empathize with your thoughts about the difficulty of traveling and trying to honor your homeland. At the same time, I am awed by some of the events that some of our speakers also described. That has to do with when Ayla mentioned the rights of media for the indigenous peoples in Ukraine, and the fact that ATR is continuing on and putting on such wonderful programming, as well as when Denis not only mentioned the work that is being done by those people supporting the families of the oppressed, but there's also when we mentioned the fact that Anton mentioned the language coming into Ukrainian law, for Ukrainians definitely relate to this. Ukrainians relate to the fact that for centuries, as Crimean Tatars, we had to fight for our recognition of our language and for that to be codified. And the fact that you're living in this time where your language, your people's language, which had not been recognized in so many places, will be finally recognized in his homeland in a codified setting for Americans, right? We're here in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn right now. For Americans, they have no idea what that's like to live, because that's in history books, right? When English was codified. So we are truly living in an age where, yes, there are all of the repressions, but then as Denis brings up that PARE at the European Council also recognizes things. So there are victories at the same time as the sadness. And I thank you for your words. Is Elvina on right now?
Elvira.
Sorry about that, and my humble apologies, because I noticed that one of them had a problem on one of the programs I sent out. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to add you right now, and let's give another representative of our Crimean Tatar American youth here.
Yes, also Brooklyn.
Also, yeah, located in
That's
Brooklyn.
Wonderful. Brooklyn, Crimea.
Yes, I'm really honored to be a representative of Crimean Tatar youth being here in Brooklyn. I support everything that Erwin said before. It is still a very sad topic to us when it comes to when it comes to Crimea or Crimean people. But regardless, I would like to say Happy Crimean Tatar Flag Day. I am very thankful for everyone who already spoke, and it is very informative event. And I hope going forward we will be doing more events like that. And when it comes to a question, what does Crimean Tatar Flag Day mean to me? So I think of this day not only as honoring a national symbol, but also honoring the origins, Crimean Tatar origins and Crimean Tatar history, and showing the patriotism and sense of attachment to the homeland. As a community member, given the 2014 occupation of Crimea, I would like to cover a few points that I've been noticing, maybe more on a personal level. Again, I'm not going to touch anything new. It's all being, it's all was said already. I'd like to point out that occupation has segregated us as Crimean Tatars as a nation. And I see that more and more Crimean Tatars are moving out from Crimea. They're searching for a better place to live, for better job opportunities, for better life for their kids. Some of them moving to Turkey or to the United States. I know a lot of young people moved to Kiev, and they're very happy there in Kiev. And I've been noticing after some time living in another country, for example, people start adjusting to a new culture, to new traditions of the country where they live now, and they start celebrating holidays and with everybody else, and slowly they start losing their own identity as Crimean Tatars. They start forgetting their traditions and, most important, their language. By the way, thank you so much for the video. I was so happy to hear my own language. I haven't heard it for so long. And it was very exciting video, very short, but very informative again. Going back to what I was saying, so people start losing sense of attachment to the homeland, and especially when it comes to young generation, kids. They adapt into a new culture, to a new environment very quickly, and it is sad to realize that the sense of the homeland and sense of the homeland culture is disappearing. So going back to a question, how to make Ukraine whole again, and how to, in my opinion, the unity is very important. The unity of not only people in that particular country, but also the unity of diaspora, unity of people who live outside Ukraine, outside Crimea. That's something that we need to think of, something that we need to maybe discuss on our daily basis, and maybe come up with some ideas how to unite people within our families, first of all, and then the country in general. And with that being said, I think we need to do more community programs. And even today, having a Zoom meeting, it's a big deal. It's very important that it's being recorded, and this is a live session, so other people can see us and other people can get this information, very important information, and we all together can celebrate the nation. Well, I don't want to say it's a holiday, given all the sad topics that we already spoke about, but the day of the flag, and join us on this live event. So going back to community programs and Zoom meetings, I know that Ukraine is developing as Ukraine is developing very fast in direction of IT. It's a lot of younger people working in IT industry, and I think it will be great to think of creating maybe some apps to gather like small group of people, Ukrainian, Crimean people all together. I don't know how it is. I also would like to have access to Crimean people who live in Crimea, and I'm not sure how it works in terms of like social media or platforms like Zoom, if they available in occupied Crimea right now. So they can also join us on this Zoom meetings on maybe like monthly basis, so we can have any idea what's going on with people who actually live in Crimea. And I would love to hear from them as well. That would be really, I think, great. Kind of unite all of us together as Crimeans who live in Crimea, as Ukrainians, and Crimean Tatars who live in the United States. Well, I hope you get everything what I said. Maybe it's not new, but this is something that was in my mind, and I wanted to share with you. And thank you so much again for this wonderful event. I really enjoying it, and it's been again informative, and I think it's very useful for us to be a part of that kind of meetings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's not just when you bring up technologies. I'm also amazed at all the IT that's happening in Ukraine. And if for those who don't know, they're actually Zoom alternatives that even one of the Ukrainian schools in New York is using, a Ukrainian company that does a live classroom thing. But as I've learned from some of our many conferences of the Ukrainian World Congress, there are many times where people my age, and I'll say I'm quite older than you, that we try to make sure that some of our members and our leaders are up to date on what to do with Zoom and social media. Crimea. But for the most part, every time we try to catch up, there will be a new technology. And so I don't even know when you're at my age or some of the other speakers' age, what communications you'll be doing. But I know from the level of activism that we're seeing today that we will definitely be seeing whatever the electronic format is. We'll be seeing Crimean Tatar voices connecting online, not only at events like this, but I know that I'm going to ask Victoria to speak a little bit because she has been on events representing the Ukrainian American youth. She's part of the Ukrainian American Civic Center in the United States that I see her at many conferences for a young person. She goes to Washington, D.C., but she also has taken part with events with Crimean Tatar youth. So if Victoria, would you like to say a couple of words?
Absolutely, and it's an honor to be here and an honor to have the opportunity to speak. Now, I was wondering if it's all right if I share my screen at the moment. Thank you. Okay, I believe the host has disabled participant screen sharing. Sir, you are muted. I apologize.
Too many buttons for me. Here you go. There you go. There you go now. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Are you able to see my graph here?
Yes, we are.
Lovely. So the question, as a community member, given the 2014 temporary occupation of Crimea, how can you assist in making Ukraine whole again? And this method can be considered by the community. The question has many answers. However, the solution in making Ukraine whole again is twofold and lies in reclaiming culture, specifically the history and language of our lands. To put into context this necessity, I highlight that during the Soviet Union and following its dismantlement, Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar culture was actively being erased. Under Stalin, the use of Russian language was actively being mandated and any Ukrainian literature was prohibited. This extended through all of Ukrainian lands and any Ukrainian lands, including those inhabited by Crimean Tatars. Through storytelling and smuggled books hidden in crevices was the history of our cultures preserved. In order to unify ourselves, we must embrace the wrongs done to us and allow ourselves to heal by actively sharing these stories. Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars are thus given the task of sharing their traumas and the pain that runs through ancestral veins. This means actively rebuilding the history that is currently being taught in Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar children's schools. The curriculum could be built from personal accounts and primary sources, such as personal documents kept by ancestors and documents that reflect geographical movement. In making history personal and closer to pupils, we would inspire a generation with common knowledge, and to anyone who has visited Ukraine in certain places would know that the most commonly spoken language is Russian. This specifically nuance has been heavily prodded by political theorists because it reflects the very reason why Ukrainians are still unable to break away from Russia. And if we cannot open our mouths to produce anything but Russian sound, we are crippling ourselves and rejecting our own flowering cultures. The eastern and southernmost parts of Ukraine face this problem at least. Specifically, the Crimean Tatar population has taken a weighted blow, considering the vast history of cultural extermination faced by the group. I would like to direct your attention to the key at the bottom of which is the statement none below 50%, meaning that there is no region where 50% of the population in Crimea has a language other than Russian as the common tongue. The effects of this are the stigmatization of other cultures and erasure of tradition. If we do not have a language, we do not have anything to write folk songs with or fables for children. There is no foundation. To begin to solve this, Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar must be taught in schools more actively and begin with newer generations. Additionally, the examination of Russified language must be conducted as it affects both languages. Through underground congregations and devoted activists were our languages preserved, and they have undoubtedly been affected by Russian language because of how imperative it was that everyone speak Russian during the Soviet Union, and how informal the transfer of our language was. The Ukrainian language specifically has been heavily stigmatized and labeled the peasant's tongue because it is not widely spoken in the halls of the Ukrainian government. This idea is perpetuated by Ukrainian political leaders and public figures who have only been taught to speak Russian, yet reflect the opinion that the Ukrainian language has no place in power. Teaching future politicians to speak Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar would eliminate this and undoubtedly allow for a greater connection between the people and their government as well. This is not all to say that Russian is a negative language. On the contrary, knowledge of other languages only enriches people. However, it must be emphasized that Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar languages belong to their people and are worthy of being taught, sung, and adored. In order for this movement to be successful, local officials must be engaged across Ukrainian lands. The effort to put focus on culture above physical protection against active military warfare that is taking place on Ukraine's borders will be a daunting task. However, it is necessary to begin as soon as possible if we want to survive as a population of sovereign Ukrainian people and Crimean Tatars. Urging principals and teachers to take interest is an additional challenge as well, considering the very demographic that this group now fits was raised on the Russian language and moreover taught that it is a formal language. However, this is an effort that can be accomplished through community-wide engagement and active interest from Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars. We can unite Ukraine once more by listening to each other and learning more about ourselves and the struggles and triumphs that we came from. As always, Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. I know I popped up Mavile earlier, and I will put her up on the screen for a couple of thoughts as we wrap up today. But one of the things that I'm always interested regarding the actions of people, again, I don't necessarily need to call you youth, but I will refer to you as people who are younger than us. And the fact that for those of you, you will have decades of work, not just that which happens not right now. So all of this work that is being done by the diplomats who have graced us with their time today to make sure that Ukraine is whole again, but there will be decades and decades of work. For one thing, as your map points out, we've gone through nearly over 7 years of occupation in a part of Ukraine that hasn't benefited from decommunization that the rest of Ukraine has. So for the youth, it'll be up to you not just to figure out what that means when you decolonize Crimea, what those, not only restoring the Crimean place names, but hailing those people that kept the culture alive. This is something that's been done throughout Ukraine, and we should not forget the living history that's being done by whether it's Crimea SOS, all the activists in Ukraine right now working, all the Crimean Tatar activists working towards making Ukraine whole, much like the way that Ukraine has tried to figure out how to include already the Maidan Museum of the Revolution of Dignity into current educational practices. So those history books are literally going to be written by some of the people that we are seeing today, and that no least of which is QHub, which is Crimean educational platform online. And Mavile, can I ask you to give us the final word today?
Yes, Selamdan Kırım'dan, вітання з Криму. By the way, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, perfect. Good morning, honored guests from America and Ukraine, and good afternoon. It's an honor to me to join this online event from temporarily occupied by China Crimea. This event is organized by the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America and World Congress of the Crimean Tatars, and I want to say thank you to all of you who put your hands in to make this event happen today. And I'm grateful to all the panelists for their speeches, for their videos and presentations, and very significant messages. Today we talked a lot about the Crimean Tatar Flag Day and what it means, what it is about, its historical background. And I also want to say a couple of words what the sense of this day is to me. Recently, on the eve of the Crimean Tatar Flag Day, one can hear often the phrase "one country, two flags." Indeed, the Crimean Tatar flag is often associated with Crimea. Crimea were two blue-yellow flags, Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar, waved next to each other. In addition, for me personally, as well as for hundreds of thousands of Crimean Tatars, the flag is a symbol of the historical resilience of the Crimean Tatar people in the face of injustice. It is the symbol of loyalty to the values and ideals of serving people, as well as boundless love for their native land of their ancestors, the Crimean Peninsula. I would also like to stop briefly on 2 points. First of all, what is the future of Crimea, how I see it. And first of all, I would say that I see Crimea free from injustice and dangers that is full of today for its residents. The future Crimea is a place where Ukrainian laws operate and where millions of families of Ukrainians from the mainland rush to vacation every summer, as was the case quite recently. Naturally, the Crimea of the future is also an autonomous Crimean Tatar Republic within Ukraine, where the Crimean Tatar people have ample opportunities to restore their language, their culture, their art, and values. Interfaith and interethnic tolerance, mutual respect, and cooperation reign in the Crimea of the future. And in addition, I would like to see the Crimea of the future as a popular place for tourists from all around the world, a platform for all kinds of international forums, conferences, and summits. And of course, despite the current environmental situation and problems, the Crimea of the future is an example of the harmonious coexistence of man and nature. And I would also like to say what we can do now as young people from Ukraine, from America, and from Crimea. Since I'm a resident of Q-Hub, that is the Crimean Tatar Youth Platform, I would like to talk about the steps that young people can take in order to speed up the return of Crimea to the bottom of Ukraine. It is worth starting with the fact that today's Crimean youth is a huge resource that can and knows how to work to defend their homeland. Students, pupils, and entrants from Crimea should be prepared to become specialists and professionals in various fields, the ultimate goal of which will be to return to the liberated Crimea and work in various state institutions of autonomy. To do this, it would be appropriate to create a single network or a network or a platform where young people could learn and receive mentoring assistance from influential experts, discuss various socially important topics, and understand the significance of studying and working for the return of Crimea. And I would like to say thank you for Ms. Ayla and Elvina, if I'm not mistaken, for voicing this idea that it is needed to create such a platform, such an initiative to gather all the youth from all around the globe and to negotiate, to speak up all the problems that exist in Crimea nowadays. And speaking about the society in general, it should be understood that despite the creation of various materials and information content, the Crimean youth should continue to actualize the topic of the occupation of Crimea and explain the real situation of affairs on the peninsula with human rights and development of the territory as a whole. Only by motivating our youth in Ukraine, in Crimea, and in every other country, and hearing to its voices, I believe that we can return our native land and make Crimea prosperous in Ukraine whole again. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear your enthusiasm about this. And when we were putting the program together, you touched upon one of the very points, which is it will be incumbent upon this next generation to fill all these spots, whether it's working in government or working in the schools or working anywhere, because there will be so many things that will need to be done. And unfortunately, it won't be just making sure that all of these people are staffed and learn all the expertise. For instance, how many pieces of indigenous Crimean Tatar culture art objects have been stolen and taken to Russia, and what that process will be. There will have to be specific experts on this, yes, but it will also involve the activists to convince the government that you need people like this as well. So you have a two-pronged problem that you need to do. But I think with all the activism we're seeing today, I think we're in pretty good hands. I did make a mistake where I didn't introduce Emil one more time, because Emil, you showed us the video by Muslim, but we haven't heard from you. So I'm going to add a spotlight for you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, are you hearing me? Yeah.
Yep.
I would like to thank the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America and the World Congress of Crimean Tatars for the opportunity to join this online meeting. And I greet all these excellencies, Ukrainian diplomats, government officials, NGO representatives, our wonderful diaspora in America, and everyone who is watching us now. My name is Emil Ibragimov. I represent an NGO Crimean and educational platform QHub. Today, the topic for discussion is difficult, but I'm glad that the reason for this is the Crimean Tatar Flag Day. And today we are talking about the integrity of Ukraine in the context of the Crimean Tatar people, who are an integral part of Ukraine, and like the homeland of the Crimean Tatars, the Crimean Peninsula, so no matter what. We need to talk about Ukraine, look for ways to reintegrate our lands, discuss integral and happy country, talk about its ideas every day. In search of the evolutionary goal of our country, several experts and conferences are not enough. And the search for the evolutionary goal of Ukraine is about everyday dialogue, communication, deep research, and a lot of work. Today, in the world, we talk much about the institutional sustainability in 2030 Sustainable Development Goal 16, the UN has paid special attention on effective institutions, and we realized their important role in the modern history of our country. By the way, Russia realized that that institutions such as the Kurultai and the Majlis of Crimean Tatar people, where their people's representatives are democratically elected, pose a great threat to it precisely because of their stability and democratic stance. Therefore, they were banned in Crimea. Those who left Crimea after 2014 due to the occupation of the peninsula now the value of institutions. We understand the special importance of volunteer and non-governmental organization in the struggle for the integrity of Ukraine, and every day we prove this with our work. The QHub project and educational platform works with youth from Crimea, with local young activists and students on the mainland through different tools such as education, media, sports, and culture. And we cherish our values, which strengthen trust in us from both young people from Crimea and from local activists. Our personal ambitions are giving way to common interests, I hope. We try to be proactive and not afraid to take responsibility, and are always guided by non-violent communication through the advice process. And we believe that our team should become a star team and not just a team of stars. And we believe that in this way we contribute to the sustainable development of civil society in Ukraine and demonstrate an example to other NGOs, not just saying what to do, but showing results and proving by practice. And we believe that by our work, we contribute to the deoccupation of Crimea. Several years ago, QHAP was simply a Crimean Tatar initiative group united by a desire to return Crimea. And today we are proud to announce that QHAP is a Ukrainian NGO founded by Crimean Tatars to help their country face challenges and make Ukraine a strong and European state. And our goals are ambitious, but the deeds are real. And we have created a team of local activists for the development of creative industries in Ukraine. We have recreated the Crimean Wrestling Federation on the mainland, which integrates Crimean athletes into the Ukrainian and international context. Soon you will see a media project aimed on attracting applicants from Crimea to Ukrainian universities, which will enable young Ukrainians from Crimea to integrate into Ukraine through education. We do not lose connection with Crimea, and we know that young people in Crimea or other occupied territories are our investments in a successful Ukrainian future. All of this will not have happened if not for our partner institutions, professional Ukrainian and international NGOs, foundations, Ukrainian state institutions, the Majlis of Crimean Tatar people. This all speaks to the strength of the institutions association. When we unite, collaborate, and act together, we win. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Hamil, and thank you to those of us who are still remaining here. Ambassador Markarova personally wanted to apologize that she had another event, and if you know how busy she's been over the past 3 months, this is a regular thing because she will work before we all wake up, and she will keep on working after the fact. So the fact that she made sure that she was on here for a full 2 hours is an incredible gift of their time. But also hearing all of this, thank you for pointing out that we are recording this and that the live stream will be saved. We'll try to upload a higher level resolution than the live stream sometime later in July. I'd like to go through the list of speakers one more time to thank them. I'll begin with Ambassador Markarova, who again had to run to another event. We thank her for her opening word. We'd like to thank the Ukrainian Congress Committee with the opening word of welcome by Tamara Alexei-Gallo. I'd also like to thank Mr. Yuri Vitrenko from the Permanent Mission of Ukraine to the United Nations. We'd like to also thank Consul General of Ukraine in New York, Alexei Holubov, for his attendance. We'd like to thank Ayla Bakali, who's still with us here, a representative of the World Congress of Crimean Tatars, as well as a representative of the Crimean Tatar Majlis. We'd also like to thank Anton Kornevich, who very gamely spoke a little earlier than was planned because of the video problems. Anton, the permanent representative of the President of Ukraine in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. I'd also like to thank Denis Savchenko, who is an attorney and a board member of Crimea SOS. We'd also like to thank our many youth activists, not least of which we heard from Q Hub, which, as Emil Ibrahim mentioned, is now an NGO registered in Ukraine, a Crimean Tatar registered Ukrainian NGO, as well as Mavile Demirjayeva for their comments. We'd like to thank Victoria Falandish of the Ukrainian American Youth Civics Club for her presentation. And last but not least, my fellow Brooklyners, who I hope to see you at the Association Center as soon as we're all able to gather in person, Alvina Munjanova, as well as Ervin Seikatazi. Am I saying that right? You'll probably correct me, but I will make sure that I learn all of you and see you in person the next time I have the opportunity to be at the center. Ayla, would you like another word?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone. It was excellent, and we talked about very important things. And one takeaway is that our youth are looking for mentorship and have asked us to do these Zoom talks again. And as we move forward, hopefully we'll get together and we'll collaborate on programs and projects unifying Ukraine and making Ukraine great again. This is what we're all about.
Yes, and to underline for all the viewers, because all of us here obviously have it on our calendar, but Ukraine has launched the Crimea platform, and that we will all be watching as the leaders, the high-level delegations come to Ukraine the day before Ukraine's inauguration for that one-day high-level event, but there will be also events leading up to it. So whatever all of us activists around the world can do to make sure that that high-level event has those high-level delegations. For its part, the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America will be sending out a Crimea platform to the members of Congress throughout the month of July. And as I mentioned, we're making sure that that is also for the benefit of the members in the United States, translated not only into the Ukrainian language, but also the Crimean Tatar language, that we are all advocating in one voice as we send the English language version to Congress. And that we hope that what we advocate in July comes to fruition in August at the Crimean platform as much as possible. And then when we see President Zelensky or all the representatives of Ukraine who come to visit the United Nations in September, they'll keep up the language as well. We have the Group of 20 meeting in the world. Hopefully they mentioned in October the Crimea. So this is not a one-day event. This is just the spark for all of us to keep on working. And my sincere thank you on behalf of the organizers to all the participants, to all the people who watched on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate the comments that you've sent in. And unless there's any other word by any of the panelists, I will wish everybody a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrei.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope to see you at our upcoming events.
So.
Ciao.
Ciao, Antona. Ciao, Yuri.